people, real stories, real recovery.
Like, people's pronouns and how to address are important in their identity. When I don't see this,
Even if it's not a recovery, it's real stories, real recovery. I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.
Hi, my name is Nicolette Christian, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. I have 6 years sober in November. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I get to help women just like me navigate through their recovery process.
So thanks for joining us. This is fantastic. If you could start off by sharing a bit about what life was like growing up.
Okay, growing up, I had a pretty decent childhood. We didn't have a lot of money, but it wasn't like super dysfunctional or anything like that. I was taught good morals, hard work ethic, no real, trauma or anything like that. I would say that my parents shielded me a little bit from those things. My extensive family, there's a lot of dysfunction, so they kind of shielded me from all that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I turned 18, that kind of stuff, looks fun.
Yes, absolutely. For sure.
So I got wrapped up with a man, and he was from a very dysfunctional family, which, started off kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I got pregnant, and my son, and, today I can see how much of a miracle he was. He was born 13 weeks early. I didn't use drugs or anything back then, so I didn't really understand, why this happened to me. And it was just really hard.
Yeah.
And the doctor gave me Xanax, and that's actually how my addiction started. Like this little pill, I didn't worry about things as much. It didn't hurt as much inside. And, I went from taking them as prescribed to taking an extra one here and there. And before I knew it, I was, taking a whole script in a matter of days. So eventually, that led to my friends had painkillers. So, I was, how you do, you trade and you borrow and you try. And then I had this, pill habit that eventually turned into, shooting heroin every day,
mm-hmm.
which I really never imagined myself doing.
And how did you support your habit at this time?
So, I did all the things. I stole, I cheated people, then eventually I started selling heroin to support, my own habit. And by that time I had just had my daughter. This was, she was born in 2010. Well, that was probably the peak of my addiction right there. And I remember my daughter was only, I think, 6 months old. I was able to stop shooting heroin when I was pregnant with her because I had a doctor that prescribed me Vicodin during my whole pregnancy. Again, I really don't know why. I had, some discomfort. I think they was just trying to keep me comfortable, mm-hmm. so that I didn't have her early like I did my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to, survive on this, just doing the Vicodin during that time. Granted, I was doing a lot more than I was prescribed. And I thought I was a good mom because I wasn't shooting heroin.
Right.
But the minute that I gave birth, I had Oxycontin stored up and was doing them at the hospital
mm-hmm.
right after I gave birth. So, it really didn't take any time after I gave birth to her.
They really just dealt with the physical side of it,
yeah.
None of the mental health side.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was selling it. I was selling drugs still my whole pregnancy. In the summer of 2010, the police kicked my door in. And I can just remember seeing the fear in my son's eyes. I was arrested. I wasn't even charged actually that day. They just, I don't know, gathered evidence. And then they let me go, which kind of was weird.
Yes.
But what they were doing was they didn't really find a whole lot of physical evidence, so they were giving me rope to hang myself. So eventually the indictment came from when they kicked my door in, and I got charged with 6 counts of drug trafficking. So I was sentenced to 3 years in Marysville, Ohio, and I was able to get a judicial release after a year if, I did everything I was supposed to.
So at Marysville, did anybody say, hey, you may have a drug problem, let's maybe give you some help?
Actually, I was, it's just funny. I've been really just blessed throughout my whole walk with this. So I was actually the first group of people in the reintegration program in Marysville. So yes, we got to do Thinking for a Change. We got to do, they helped us with resumes. A lot of the general population was jealous of that because, that's just the way it goes in there.
Yep.
And I was able to, stay clean, I think, for about a year and a half.
Okay.
That was just my own will, I didn't go to meetings. I tried the thing where you separate from everybody and you think it's going to cure it, right? But eventually, I got lonely. I, met another man who was also in recovery. He wasn't really in recovery. He was just sober.
Gotcha.
But eventually, 2 sickies don't make a wellie. So eventually, I relapsed. My parole officer came one day. My, house smelled like weed. I was higher than a kite. Long story short, he's like, I don't want to send you back to prison. But we got to do something. So he's like, you go to treatment or you're going back to prison. He's like, and we're not doing this 30-day treatment. We're going to do 6 months or longer. And I was like, So he gave me a deadline. I can't quite remember. I think it was 2 weeks to find a treatment.
And how much time did you have hanging over your head that you would have to go back to prison for?
3.5 years. Yeah.
And the fact that is even something to contemplate.
Yeah.
Is the power of substance use
Absolutely.
disorder.
I truly, I didn't want to do it. I just didn't know how. I really didn't know anybody in recovery. I really didn't know anybody that had kicked heroin. I just didn't know anybody,
Right.
So I, went to check in with him, and there was a lady in the office, and I was very emotionally reserved with people I didn't know, and I wasn't about telling people my business. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And for whatever reason, I just told her, And she's like, "Do you know this pastor?" She asked me about a pastor where we're from. So she called him, and he came right over there and met with me and my parole officer, and told him I want to help her find a place to go. So he found me this ministry. Actually, that's my first go. So I did the year-long ministry. The only thing that I can say that I didn't get from that was some of the evidence-based tools. And that's why I think it's important to combine both of those things. I was able to stay sober for about 3 years after that.
Okay.
And then, I was trying to, save everybody around me. I did that, I'm a superhero thing, and pushed myself to the side. I, stopped going to the meetings and things that I had been going to. And it just slowly kind of happened. But eventually I relapsed about 3 years later on methamphetamine, which really was never my thing. But for whatever reason, inside my head, I rationalized it because, you know, the heroin was killing everybody I knew. And, you know how we do.
Yeah. And when you're looking at a way to get out of the way you're feeling,
was
it
tired,
doesn't really matter
you
what
know?
it is.
Yeah. So I went to a treatment in November of 2018. And so that's almost 6 years ago. This time I was in a place where we did evidence-based stuff. We had CBT. We had all the things that I had missed the first time. I had gotten that spiritual connection the first time, but I didn't necessarily gain the tools, like the coping skills and things that, you know, we need.
Right.
So I started things off really slow. I didn't overwhelm myself with work like I did at first. I remember it was very hard with my parents. Just not that they didn't want to believe me,
Right.
but you know,
You'd
do
had
that.
3 years.
We give them that hope, and then we take it back, and it's very hard on them. So I didn't immediately go get my children. I started off on like weekends with them, and I could have because I still had custody. But I just started off on weekends. For when I didn't want to overwhelm myself, it wasn't fair to them to just uproot them. They would have to go to a different school. It wasn't fair to my mom, who always had to pick up the pieces. I just had to pace myself and make sure I had a good structure for myself first.
So how long did you wait before starting to think about romantic relationships?
Well, not long enough. To be honest, I was only about 5 months sober, which is usually not a great idea. Micah, I think, was about the same amount, maybe 6. So this is my warning though. You know, it was very quick. Like, we got married within 6 months.
Wow.
But within the first 2 months of our marriage, Micah had relapsed. So had I not built the support that I had, you know, and learned to set boundaries, because that was something I always struggled with. Like, I had to say, you have to go to treatment or you have to get out. Because I just knew, like, I was trying to stay sober, and then I was trying to keep him sober, and that wasn't working. So, you know, I did that, and thankfully he did it. He now has almost 5 years, I think, 4.5, something like that. But we've built this, like, we've completely surrounded ourselves with recovery, with ministry that we do. I think it's so important just to show people that there's hope, and that's really my goal today, and it's really awesome to get to do it with my husband.
So before I let you go, a couple of questions. How did you rebuild your relationships with your children?
Oh, well, okay. So during my relapse, when I had relapsed on meth, my son, I'm only saying this because it was a very important part of the story. So my son, he got in trouble. He got, like, I don't know, him and a friend went into an abandoned house, and I was out using meth, and I wasn't even there. So after I had gotten sober, he had actually went to court for that, and he was sent to a boys group home. So we had to do family counseling while he was in there, which was great. Like, my kids needed that so much. And I tell the women that I work with, like, how important I think this is. We just sat down as a family, and they got to tell me, like, all the things that I did to hurt them, you know, how it made them feel, and it was such a big part of their healing, I think.
That's very cool. Okay, final question. Everybody has bad days. We all seem to have either a cliche, a Bible verse, a saying from our moms. What's your go-to when you're having a bit of a struggle?
Philippians 2:14 says, "Do all things without grumbling and complaining."
I love it.
That actually got me through rehab.
Yes, that's a great one.
It's just, a good reminder that, like, just not to focus on the bad stuff and grumble and complain. I just redirect my thoughts on the blessings that I have, the life that I've built, because we can get stuck on the negative, like my car broke down and this and that, but you know, I have a car. I'm not living in my car.
Right.
I did that once.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
So I think just reminding myself sometimes the blessings, and I look at the people that I help, and I always see myself in them, and I think not ever forgetting that is super important, because I think sometimes people forget, you know, but I always see myself in any person that I'm helping, and it doesn't matter, male, female, what they do, like, you'll find something, and I think I just always hold on to that, so I can always remember where I come from.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you have a beautiful story of resilience and redemption that is incredible. So thank you so much for